Well, the Preds kick off 2024 with a big game against Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks off the heels of Yaroslav Askarov's first NHL win. We'll recap the weekend and look ahead to tonight's game, plus an update on the Preds in the World Juniors today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start out with a special shout out to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys, and we appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at the Hockey News.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. All right, lots to get to on today's show. It's been a while since we've recorded. We had a nice New Year's Day off yesterday. Go Blue in the college football national championship.
Fair enough. Go Big Ten. That's as far as I can go, but go Big Ten.
Go Penn State, I guess.
Always. Not in the bowl games this year, but yeah, go Big Ten. We'll just stop there.
So the Predators start their 2024 with a big game tonight against Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. Preds looking for any sort of momentum. Plus, thoughts on a weird World Juniors for the Nashville Predators this year. Plus, the NHL Winter Classic was last night. So a lot to get to, but let's start with the Predators this past weekend. A sort of a mixed bag. A overtime loss against the Detroit Red Wings. A shootout win over the Washington Capitals, one that includes Yaroslav Askarov's first NHL win. And thoughts on where the Preds sort of are right now entering 2024.
When you look at just this past weekend, and if you say to someone, hey, the Predators played 2 games and they came away with 3 of 4 points, you think, okay, that's really pretty good. That's totally acceptable. But when you look at the teams that they played, and I mean this as absolutely no disrespect to Detroit or to the Capitals, Detroit dealing with a ton of injuries, been a super fun team to watch earlier in the season when they're healthy, and the Capitals just kind of not the same Washington Capitals. And when you factor in what the Predators really need to be doing and how some of their previous games have gone, I don't know. I kind of feel a little bit like, man, missed opportunity. Like it feels like there was a point left on the board for the Predators in these 2 games. But, overall, just if you're looking back at like this 2023 half of the 2023-24 season, I think it's been super exciting. I think it's been a little bit unexpected. I think it's been encouraging, but I think now we're entering the stretch of the season where like that thrill of them being, oh my gosh, they're better than we thought, is kind of going to get in the mud a little bit as they battle, especially in the month of January. The January schedule is not my favorite. It is a little bit hideous, my friends. So, I feel pretty good about it, but I'm also at this moment sort of tempering expectations as we go forward.
The big thing to me is it's been a while since I've seen the Predators play a full 60-minute game.
Yes.
And I think that's maybe the biggest concern. They played the Red Wings, got off to, a lead, held that lead, and then 2 quick goals from Detroit sort of turned that on its head. Predators started off hot 2-0 against Washington, and then Washington battled back, and the Preds kind of really had to hang on there. Towards the end of the game, we, of course, we know what happened against the Dallas Stars last week. The Carolina game was just a mess. So it just feels like the Predators are really struggling to find that consistency during games.
Yeah.
And I think that's, if you're Andrew Brunette, that's the next big thing you have to tackle. We kind of mentioned this last week when we're doing our look ahead towards 2024, was just maybe one of the biggest things that we wanted to see was consistency.
Yeah.
And if they win, enough games and get to the playoffs, that's fine. If they miss the playoffs, whatever. The biggest thing is just kind of seeing everybody who's on the ice play up to their potential for most of the 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first big step. And is that, if you could just get, outplayed in some of these games, that's not going to be understandable. Like if, you get outplayed by the Toronto Maple Leafs or anything like that, I don't think fans are going to be too upset about that. When you go out and you have a hot start and then you sort of give it away by falling back into weird habits or being careless with a puck or making mental mistakes, that's, I think, when you have to step in and be like, okay, we're unhappy with this right now.
Yeah, and the phrase that you said that really hits it home for me is falling back into old habits, because the mistakes that have cost the Predators some goals lately, the mistakes that have cost them momentum, and sometimes mistakes that have cost them games are mistakes that we've seen them make earlier in the season. And it's one of those things where you don't expect perfection from a brand new team, new system, new head coach, and yada, yada, yada. But be original, make new mistakes. Find, you know what I'm saying? Like find new bad habits to correct, and being able to keep refining the game instead of going back to some of the things that have cost you earlier. And that's a little bit of this is a young team, I think, that you're seeing it's like some of the things that we've seen Andrew Brunette correcting and working on with the team earlier in the season. Some of those things are creeping back in. And so this is where I think you're really seeing the young part of this team, and you're seeing the veterans really trying to kind of push through that. So hopefully, 2024, maybe we'll see some new mistakes, which, means growth, painful, but it still means growth.
Yeah. New us, same mistakes.
Yeah, that doesn't feel as good.
Andy Kimball's motto for 2024. Everybody. Keep making mistakes, just new mistakes.
New mistakes. It's a new year, fresh with new opportunities to screw up, y'all.
Yeah. We mentioned it earlier. Yaroslav Askarov in net for Washington. First career NHL win.
Can't stand it. Just can't even stand it. I thought it was a really good game. And this game, for a couple of reasons, I think could have been a little bit big for Askarov if he had not just been ready for the moment. And you look at especially how the game unfolded. It goes to overtime. In the whole overtime, I'm like, for the love, do not let this go to a shootout. Save this guy. Goes to a shootout. And who does he face? He faces Kuznetsov and Ovechkin. I mean, this is the stuff of Hollywood movies, and he makes the saves and he wins the game. But I felt like he did a great job. Like the moment did not get too big for him. And I thought that was really exciting. I do think it brings up a lot of questions about like, okay, now what do we know about Yaroslav Askarov? What do we think?
It's one game.
It's one game. I know, but this is how excited people are about him. And he is somebody who's going to generate that kind of excitement. But I'm kind of like you. Like, I feel like that. I'm like, don't overdo it. Like, don't necessarily change course with the long-term goalie plans that Barry Trotz maybe has because of one game. But it was a good one game, and it was a fun game. It was a fun game. I was proud of him.
Not lost on the fact that it's two of the best Russians in the NHL in that shootout that Askarov was able to stop in the shootout. So good for him. I'm sure first of many in the NHL. So kudos again to Askarov. Kudos again to the Preds for, at the very least, stopping the bleeding a little bit and getting a big win against the Capitals. Can they do it again tonight? They take on the Chicago Blackhawks, featuring Connor Bedard, making his second trip to Bridgestone Arena. We'll talk about how we see that game going, a quick update on the Preds in the World Juniors, and has the Winter Classic jumped the shark? Maybe just a little bit. Or in the case of Seattle, maybe jump the fish being thrown around in the middle of the game.
There you go.
We'll talk about that coming up in just 1 second. First, though, want to mention again, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Folks, you might want to start the new year by going to a couple of hockey games or concerts or comedy shows, whatever it is. If that's the case, you're going to want to download Gametime and make buying tickets there part of your New Year's resolution. And that's because Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Unlike some of the other apps, Gametime lets you see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. I think we've all gone to stadiums or venues that we're unfamiliar with and have gotten stuck behind a pole or have some weird sight lines. That's not the case with Gametime. You can see exactly what you're getting into before you buy those tickets, and they show you your all-in prices up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out and you're not slammed with all kinds of hidden fees. You can buy tickets in just seconds with 2 taps of your phone, and there are always deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, sometimes even an hour after it starts. So it's the place to find great deals last minute on great seats. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Ann, Predators hosting the Chicago Blackhawks tonight at Bridgestone Arena, 7 o'clock puck drop per usual. Connor Bedard brings the show to Smashville. Ann, how do we see this one going?
This is going to be kind of an important game, which may seem surprising with where the Blackhawks rank in the Central Division and overall in the NHL. But there's a couple of factors that are going into this game that I think are important for the Predators. One, we've talked about the Predators really have had kind of some rocky games recently. So this is a chance to do that kind of 60-minute hockey that we've talked about. But also, Predators have lost their last 3 home games, and that is something that Andrew Brunette feels really strongly about. He finished up practice yesterday talking to the team about, like, this is a home game. This is at Bridgestone Arena. This is our ice. These are the games we have to win. So I think there's a lot of focus on winning at home. I think there's a lot of focus on managing what Connor Bedard brings to the game. And I think it's kind of funny and also kind of cool that there's an 18-year-old out there where teams are really having to have discussions about him specifically. So I don't know, kind of a fun thing to watch as Connor Bedard enters the league. But I think this is a good opportunity for Nashville to kind of turn the page. They need a definitive win. Like the wins they've gotten have been like, oh, hey, we won that. They need some definitive wins. And I think tonight would be a really great chance for that. I do not think Chicago's going to give that up easily. They're coming in. They lost 8-1, my friends, to the Dallas Stars on New Year's Eve. That's not how they kind of wanted to leave 2023. So I think tonight
all 8 goals were scored in the last 13 seconds of the game, too.
We don't talk about painful Dallas losses. We're all hurting. But this is kind of I think there's a lot built into this game despite, season records. So it's a big one tonight for the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to kind of watch how I guess both teams sort of handle where they are, because the Blackhawks have not been playing well as a team this last little bit, although Connor Bedard has had some good highlight reel moments. He's looking good out there, but the rest of the team is absolutely tanking right now. And if you're the Nashville Predators, you mentioned you want to see that complete game that we talked about a little bit earlier, because this is that team that you should be having absolutely no problems with. With all due respect to Chicago, if the Nashville Predators struggle in this game,
that's tough.
That's not a good sign.
Mm-mm.
So, I mean, look, and if the Blackhawks come out and give it their all, that's one thing. But if you're making those same kind of mistakes, if you're struggling to win possession and keep possession against the Chicago Blackhawks, there may be more of a
Yeah.
deeper conversation going on in Smashville right now. But yeah, if you're the Nashville Predators, this is a game you have circled as this is our chance to hit the ground running in 2024. This is our chance to kind of build some momentum the other way.
Yeah.
We sort of eked out a win against Washington. If we can kind of build off that and get a more definitive win tonight, now we got a little bit something cooking. Now we're getting back on our game. The belief is back. And you're going to enter this tough January schedule with maybe a little bit more confidence. If you struggle or lose to the Blackhawks tonight, you're going to have to do some damage control, heading into some of the deeper part of the schedule.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. This is a great opportunity to sort of get back on track against a team that's not particularly on track. You cannot waste this opportunity tonight. The Predators really do have to come out and be ready. And it's interesting. The Predators have played we talked about just how sort of relentless the schedule was. It was like game day off, hey, back to back for a while. January, they have more 2 days off in a row. So let's see how the Predators manage this. They're going into the game tonight with a couple of days off. Let's see how they do, with the energy and managing a little bit more practice time as opposed to game time. So it's going to be interesting. I am curious to see if we can get a game where we get top line scoring and depth scoring all in the same time, like all in the same game, because it feels like this season, there have been a lot of games where we've really counted on depth players to sort of carry the win. The last time they played Chicago, Evangelista had a goal. Jankowski was up. He had a goal. Or is this going to be a game where Gus Nyquist scores, a hat trick because he's on a heater right now? So this would be a really good game to see some offensive results up and down the lineup for the Predators. I think that would be reassuring for Andrew Burnett, I think for the team, and I think for the fans to watch as well. Let's see if we can get kind of everybody in the same game going offensively at the same time.
Yeah, 4 goals and 7 points for Nyquist in his last 5 games. So kudos to him.
Yeah.
Let's talk about UC Saros, who's expected to get the start tonight. Did not have a good performance against Carolina, although not necessarily his fault.
Nope.
Sort of. I mean, we talked about him kind of being on his game-stealing performance, had some good saves against Detroit, but that save percentage is starting to dip again, and you're starting to see maybe more goals against him than maybe we're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something to watch out for, Anne?
I mean, I think you have to kind of keep an eye on what's going on with Saros. I do think some of the games where, he has not looked particularly good. He also was not receiving probably the defensive help. There was definitely some shots in that Carolina game where you're like, is there a defenseman to be had? Anybody want to step between the puck and UC Saros? But it's not something we're used to seeing, even kind of under an unforeseen defensive circumstances. So I think this is a good game for UC Saros. This is a game where you do want to see that UC Saros incredible saves, not going to sweat it on a breakaway kind of vibe again. And like you said, the last couple of games have been tough. He's been in the 700s with save percentage. And again, not all due to poor performance by Saros by any means, but you want to see that turnaround for him. So, maybe tonight. No Michigan for Connor Bedard tonight, my friends.
Yeah. Although, hey, shout out to the Maize and Blue, I guess. Yeah. So 7:00 Central puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. We will see if the Predators can eke out a win. Meanwhile, let's talk about the baby Preds. A couple of Preds prospects at the World Juniors. We'll check in on them. Plus thoughts on the NHL Winter Classic coming up in just a second.
The NFL regular season is wrapping up. I'm sure there are Tennessee Titans fans that are saying, oh, thank goodness. But there is still time to get in on the action with our friends at FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use. There's a lot of different ways that you can bet. Like they have live same game parlays. You can find bets they have a new Explore tab. Check that out. Also, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. It's the best way to find the popular parlays and more. So go and visit fanduel.com/lockedon and you can make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, Ann, let's check in on our Nashville Predators at the World Junior Championships. We have Matthew Wood in Canada right now, who, as of this filming, scored a goal. So, yay! He just scored one against Czechia. That game is still going on. And then in Finland, Kulanomi, who has kind of had a up and down tournament so far for a Finland team that's been up and down. Just kind of a weird tournament overall for the Preds prospects.
Yeah, it has been a bit of a weird tournament overall. I think it was, I will just say, just personally, I was so disappointed that Tanner Molendyk was injured. And couldn't compete, because it's, as exciting as it is to watch Kulanumi and Matthew Wood, who are both really interesting prospects, fun guys to watch, and definitely someone to keep an eye on. There is something about Tanner Molendyk that you just really looked forward to watching. So that was disappointing, I think, from the start. Matthew Wood has not played a ton of minutes. He's definitely been the extra forward in a lot of games, which I don't think is surprising. I don't think it's an indictment on his talent level. I think it's that he is very, very young. And you look at some of the players who they have on that, roster for Team Canada, he's playing, it's not an indictment. I want to be clear that I don't think his performance at the World Juniors speaks anything over his future potential with the Nashville Predators. That's all I'm going to say about that.
No, go by all means, Anne, go ahead and elaborate.
No, I think, what, this is one tournament. This is a tournament. It's like saying Yaroslav Askarov played that one game. Let's trade Kevin Lankinen and bring Askarov up immediately. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? This is one tournament. Matthew Wood is a young player. He's still growing. I could go on, but let's just not, everybody. Let's not read into the fact that, Matthew Wood's limited playing time means that he's not going to be successful in Andrew Brunett's system. Kulanumi, I think, has been kind of up and down. He, a little bit of a rough day this morning with some things, but it's good. This is all good, regardless of how the tournament comes out. This is so good. Barry Trotz was over there watching the prospects, obviously watching some of the younger players available for the draft as well. So nothing but good can come from this for Kulanumi, for Matthew Wood, to be able to get this experience at this level with these type of players in this environment. So, while I don't think that anybody would say that they have just been blown away with the performances of Wood and Kulanumi, I think, what, this is all good. Good things are happening.
Yeah, Wood in particular too. The fact that he's still, I think that's now 2 goals, 2 assists this tournament, including the one he scored today. And he's doing that in a limited time. So I think that's good. And again, Kulanumi, I think that's more of a learning experience for him. I think he's played most of this tournament as Finland's top defenseman on that right side. So I think that, the fact that he's getting number 1 minutes in a tournament like this, is going to be a good learning experience for him, if nothing else. And I agree with you. It sounds like Molendyk would have played a pretty decent role in this from the sound of it. So it's just a shame that he got hurt, because
it is disappointing.
It would have been really, really fun to see him and Wood together.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Winter Classic yesterday, Anne. It was in Seattle.
It was.
The Kraken won.
They did.
We're not gonna mention who scored for the Kraken.
I saw that and I was like, here we go.
We're not going to do it, Anne. We're gonna find new problems in 2024.
That's right. New problems, friends. Don't bring that old problem back.
What's your thought on the Winter Classic right now? Because from hockey fans, I mean, there's the diehards, there's the people that cover the team, but just from like Predators fans who watch other sports or stuff, or some of the, just casual hockey fans I follow, it seems like the number one reaction was, oh yeah, the Winter Classic is today also.
Yeah, I think there's a couple reasons why I think that is. I think and I don't mean this in any sort of critical way because I, love Seattle and Vegas Golden Knights, but you've got two relatively new teams playing in the Winter Classic. They're also playing, those are two teams from two relatively similar geographical areas. So it's not going to probably appeal to a demographic of East Coast hockey fans as much as it is other fans. But I think the Winter Classic is much about the experience and the spectacle as it is the hockey. Now, to the players, it's about the hockey. But if you're talking about that, I studied theater. Like, I'm here for the busload of players getting off in bejeweled Elvis jumpsuits and wigs and dressing like fishmongers. So, like, I love all of the stuff around the Winter Classic. I think players enjoy the uniqueness of the experience. But it did feel a little like, just in general, maybe a little underwhelming as far as like promotion or appeal or something. Like, I can't quite put my finger on it. I loved it, but I know what you're saying about like, did the NHL fan base really bite on this? I don't know that they did.
It doesn't feel. And I talked about this a little bit on today's Locked On NHL with Seth Tupal too.
Mm-hmm.
But, I remember back when Sidney Crosby played Buffalo in that snowstorm and got that game-winning shootout goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the next year was Detroit and Chicago at Wrigley Field. And that was, big hockey game at Wrigley Field for the first time. And then the Bruins, I think, took on the Flyers at Fenway next year. It just felt like, oh my God, like I gotta see this. Like I gotta see like what baseball at Wrigley Field or Fenway Park is gonna look like. And it just seems like the novelty has kind of worn off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool that they're going to new places like Seattle.
Right.
But if you're just a casual sports fan, which I think is what the Winter Classic is kind of targeting, your number one reaction is going to be, wait, when the hell did the Seattle get an NHL franchise? Did the Supersonics just don skates or something like that?
Yeah.
And just think like some of the awareness isn't quite there. It's not as much must see.
Mm-hmm.
Hard sentence for me to say. It's not as much of a novelty as it was back in that time. And I don't know if you're the NHL, how you fix that. I know you want New Year's Day to kind of be your thing, but that's college football's thing.
Very true.
For God's sakes, Anne, we watched a Cheez-It get a massage yesterday.
And ESPN. It was amazing.
And it was amazing. We had the two, I would say the best college football semifinal slate of games. This was certainly the one where both games were the closest,
right?
In a very, very long time. And if you're a sports fan, you're gonna want to see that. You're not gonna turn into like a mid-season game. So it would be fun. I'd love to see the NHL keep this going, but they gotta find some way to kind of make this more of a special thing.
Yeah, I think you hit on it when you're talking about things like Fenway Park. Because you have to have some sort of iconic piece of this puzzle. And I truly mean no disrespect to Vegas Golden Knights. They've got a great fan base. Seattle Kraken, they have a great fan base. And let's be honest, Seattle Kraken nails branding like no other professional sports team. So nothing against those franchises, but you didn't have like that original six my grandfather used to watch this team in it. You didn't have that necessarily iconic location with the big green monster in the background. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
almost have to have something like that to draw in your more non-traditional fans. So, I see that. I wonder too, is it something that when you've got stadium series and you've got heritage classics and stuff, has it become a little overexposed? I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. I will say this. I talked to a couple of the Predators yesterday about outdoor game experiences, and just shameless plug, wrote a piece about it at InsideThePreds.com. But it was so fun to hear them talk about it. Colton Sissons talked about playing in the stadium series and that experience. Dante Fabro played in a World Juniors, Team Canada versus Team USA, outdoors, my friends, in Orchard Park, New York. Now, having grown up 2 hours from then, I was like, oh my gosh. And he's like, it was incredible. It was the most fun, hilarious, middle of the game, Buffalo snowstorm. I came home and YouTubed it. If you have 5 minutes, do yourself a favor and YouTube that game, because he was saying like you would shoot the puck and you would have to really track it because it would be covered in snow as it went down the ice, because it was just coming down so hard. And Ryan O'Reilly played in the coldest outdoor NHL game on record in Minnesota. It was almost -6 degrees. And he told me he couldn't sleep on his side for about a week later because he did not wear ear protection. And like his ears were like burned from the cold, like frostbite from the cold. So it's a fun, unique experience, but you've got to find a way to make it appeal to everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And I hope they find a way to kind of bring it back, because it's fun for the players that are there, and it's fun for the team.
Yes.
If you're a home fan, like the crowd yesterday in Seattle was fantastic.
Yes.
So I would love to find a way for them to keep that going, but I think it does need a little bit of a revamp.
Little tweaks here.
Little tweaks here and there.
Don't make same mistakes in 2023 with the Winter Classic.
Yeah,
in
different
2024.
mistakes.
Different mistakes, please.
New year, new mistakes.
That's right.
Yeah, so we will keep an eye on the Predators tonight. They take on the Chicago Blackhawks, 7:00. We will see how that turns out, and we'll have a full recap for you on tomorrow's show. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Back tomorrow with an all-new episode. See you then.